Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the This Week's Acca podcast on the back of our first winner of the season, a 12-1 fourfold last week. And of course, because we've had a winner, we've totally changed up the panel. Tom's on annual leave, Jimmy's at his sister's wedding, but we've brought in EFL expert Gab Sutton to give me and Jake a hand in the international breaks. We've got plenty of expert knowledge. And remember, if you haven't already, please like, follow, subscribe us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. So, let's get straight into it. Big winner. I can't take any credit for it. Neither can Gab. So the only person that can talk about the 12-1 winner, which was, as a reminder, Brentford to beat Southampton, Aston Villa to win at Leicester, Walsall to beat Cheltenham, and Notts County to beat Swindon. Well done, Jake.
I'll take all the credit this week. They're not here to take it. That's a bit of a dream, to be honest. It was looking a little bit shaky, wasn't it? Notts County away at Swindon were 1-1, and then McGoldrick scored a stunning goal, didn't he?
Swindon scored first, didn't
he? Did, yeah. But I always thought Notts County was going to score twice. I mean, it was for every confidence in them. I think the way in which the second goal came about made it even more emphatic, really, because it was a great finish.
Oh, without Jatta, though, so it could have been touch and go.
That did concern me when I saw he wasn't in the lineup. But yeah, the rest of the teams were fairly comfortable. Quite a few comments on YouTube as well, people getting involved. We had Darren Jones, 1983, said he included Leeds to get the Acca freeze and then froze the Villa game because, quote, I lost my balls. Well done, lads. So well done to you as well, making it a fivefold and a nice winner, Leeds Cruise as well. Ross Maxwell, 1073, why away teams? We had 2 away teams last week. They both won, that's why, Ross. Sean Scott Dennis. He's a lot of comments. He's a regular commenter. So hi, Sean. Typical, I opt out and it wins. Great example of Sod's Law. And then before that, he'd written, I think I'll leave this alone. I ain't convinced about Notts County's away form.
That was my favourite.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Sean.
Sean Scott.
You know what's going to happen this week? Sod's Law. You're going to opt in and it's going to lose. Yeah. It's not really. We're going to pick another winner.
Big time. Well, I sent it around in our WhatsApp group, didn't I? That one of my friends, if you're listening, Andrew Stanton.
You've got friends, have you?
I have, yeah. I've got friends, not just at work, 1 or 2. But he's an avid follower of the Acca. And he always messages me when it's getting close. And he says, although it's class, do you know what's really sickening? I've taken your selections in previous weeks and done them with both teams to score as well. But this week, I didn't do it. And it's won.
Yeah.
So
there was someone did that on Twitter.
That's being an Acca backer, isn't it? Yeah. It's horrible.
Apologies, I can't get the tweet up this short notice, but someone did tweet in that they did the exact same thing, and I think it was a couple hundred to 1. They put a quid on it. Nice winner. Yeah, that's an incredible way going about it. So well done to you guys.
So last bit of trumpeting for 1 week before we get into this week's slate, which of course is international break, limited schedule, there's still plenty for us to get into, is there's been 17 selections we put up so far this season. 13 of those have been winners. Only one team has lost. So we've had 13 wins, 3 draws, 1 defeat, and typical, the 1 defeat is MK Dons losing at home to Bradford, because Bradford, I'd say probably along with Blackpool, they just hate this podcast.
They are the bogey team.
They really are.
Every time we put them in, they lose. Every time we back against them, they win. It's frustrating.
So my first selection for this week are Bradford to win. No, I'm kidding. Right.
Oh, look, a little bit more trumpet. I know it's still early in the season, but someone's Sunderland shout is looking very good right now.
What did I tell you?
Yeah.
Thinking outside the box, mate. That's
ahead of the game, that's what it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
You must be over the moon with where they've started.
Well, listen, it's a good start. I think we're still very early in the season. Small matter of 42 games to play.
Just the 42.
Yeah, just 42. So a lot of football to play, but so excited about this Sunderland team at the moment. I think the potential in that squad's off the scale. Yeah.
And you could argue they've had a tough schedule as well. And not had it easy, have they? They played Burnley at home, played Sheffield Wednesday, who made them look really, really poor. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's looking good. And fingers crossed for you, mate. That'd be a lovely 33-1 if they go and do the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. I mean, we've spent so long talking about how good we are, then we've eaten into having Gab's insight on the general EFL. We will come back to that in a little while, but I'm sure he's got plenty of insight on the first team that I'll put up for this week, which is Wrexham to win at home to Shrewsbury. To be honest, it's the shortest.
There's no value in that.
Shortest explanation that you're ever going to get.
No, is it 9-20 or something like that?
Yeah, but I can give you a pretty short explanation. Is under Phil Parkinson now, 156, drawn 4, lost 4 in his 64 league games since he took over at Wrexham.
Some of them are in the National League, though.
Yeah, of course.
That's at home, isn't it? It's
1-2 to beat Shrewsbury. That's in the Premier League.
1-2.
Yeah, Man City are sometimes shorter than 1-10 to beat teams at home. Wrexham's home form is absolutely outrageous.
But I think comparing them to Manchester City is a bit of a step, Joe. Because I mean, let's look at it. I think we're only
Man City don't have a film star as their owner. Come on.
How have you thought Wrexham have shaped up so far?
They've been brilliant, and look, they've stepped up really well. I've been so impressed with Jack Marriott. Some of the quality in their squad is brilliant. Really excited about Wrexham, but I think the fact that it's a derby, I think there's a little bit of needle. I think Shrewsbury. I think we had it a bit with Newport last season, who actually beat them at Rodney Parade, where there's a bit of a. I'm not saying this is right necessarily, but it's sort of natural, I suppose. Rivals of Wrexham get a bit of needle about the fact that they get all that attention, having Hollywood owners, and I think sometimes that can create a bit of a siege mentality. Paul Hurst historically has been a very good underdog manager, and I think there's probably more value in going for the double chance Shrewsbury or draw, because I think that you're going to get like an odds against quotes for that, pretty chunky. So for me, I would actually oppose Wrexham more than actually go with them at those sorts of odds.
Well, I know we've got you in as an EFL expert, but I'm going to disagree with you and agree with Joe. Okay. Wrexham for me have been probably the surprise of the season so far, because I was expecting them to finish maybe mid-table, but it looks as though, and the performance suggests so, that they're going to be pushing playoffs. They were really good away at Peterborough, like really good. They held Peterborough at arm's length the entire game, won that comfortably. They followed that up with an absolute smashing of Reading at home. Yeah. And Reading have looked really good to me as well. A team that, again, could be pushing the playoffs this season. The only game...
Worth at the back as well has looked really impressive for them as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, the only game they were poor was at Bolton. Again, another team that would be pushing for playoffs, but that was away from home. And then Shrewsbury...
And they still got a draw.
They still hung on to get a draw.
Unbelievable.
It's a small sample size, isn't it? 4 games. We normally think 10 games to sort of weigh everything up and know where a team's at. Are we confident going this high on changing our stance on where Reading are 4 games into a season?
Well, I had Reading bottom half. I think they'll finish in the top half at least.
Sorry, Wrexham.
Wrexham. Yeah,
Wrexham.
Yeah, I think so. I think the continuity they've shown, and we saw it with Ipswich last year, the winning mentality, as long as you can keep sustaining some sort of positive feeling, you don't go on a long run of losing games, that momentum just keeps, it's just confidence in the building. I think they're gonna be near that playoff mix, whether they get in there or not. I still think that would be a success if they're around 8th, that kind of area. But yeah, playing Shrewsbury, they've been really, really poor. They've played 2 away games at Huddersfield and Stevenage. They've conceded over 2 expected goals in both of those and really struggled to create chances. So
they've got Tommy O'Reilly, though, who's a really exciting, creative player. He is a bit of an individual that they'll rely on. But I think he has got his nickname Foden at Aston Villa, Little Foden, Tommy O'Reilly. And that's who they managed to get him on loan from. So for me, Tommy O'Reilly could be a danger. And I think if Shrewsbury can keep it tight, I think Paul Hurst can be a good underdog manager, and they can rely on a bit of sprinkling of creativity from Tommy O'Reilly. I think I would rather back Shrewsbury to, I don't know what the odds are on Shrewsbury, odds draw double chance kind of thing, but I would probably go with that rather than Wrexham at 1-2. I think that's a bit short for me.
I'll tell you what, just because I'm feeling nice, then I'm not forgetting about Wrexham for later on, because I find it highly unlikely that Wrexham's not going in this Acca, I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
But I'm going to let Jake go to his next one on the list.
Yeah. And
let's see if we can get a selection locked in early on that we can all get behind.
Okay.
And then we can all be friends.
Notts County at home to Accrington, 4-5. I expect it to be a little bit shorter than that, to be honest. Been the 3rd best team so far on the underlying data, creating loads of chances, conceding few. I think they've put up over 2.5 XG in both home matches. Accrington struggling. They've lost 4-1 and 3-1 in their 2 away games, and I think this is kind of cornerstone material for Acca.
Absolutely. 100%. Notts County at 4-5 against Accrington Stanley. I'm much more enthusiastic about that. They've got Dan Crowley, who I think
He's been good so far, hasn't he?
Against Grimsby, I don't know if you saw him a couple of weeks ago. He was absolutely incredible with the vision that he brought. And then they got Jody Jones. They look a bit more organised this season as well, don't they, Notts County? So 4-5, I'll be all over that.
100%. It's on my list as well. Notts County to beat Accrington. I think it's an absolute banker for this weekend. So that was a lot easier, wasn't it?
That one
nice.
was, yeah.
Brilliant. Right, so our first selection for this week's Acca is Notts County to win at home to Accrington at 4-5. Okay, I'm going to go to Cumbria next. Barrow to beat Swindon at 10-11. I like that. Anything around even money for a team where I feel pretty confident they're going to win. I'll get all my spiel out first, and then I'll throw it out to you guys. So, Barrow, I think it's easy to forget that Barrow are actually a really good team. They just fell to pieces in that kind of last 6 to 8 weeks of the season. Stephen Clements has had a really good start since he took over. They've done brilliantly at home so far this season. Now they've drawn Chelsea in the next round of the Carabao Cup after knocking out Derby. Swindon, on the other hand, are really bad. So I did a little bit of digging into Swindon's numbers from last season. You look at how they dropped off after starting well last year. Yeah. So 19 points after 9 games last season when Jake Young was scoring all those goals on loan from Bradford. Since then, 37 points from 41 matches, so 0.9 points per game. Now they've got a new manager in Mark Kennedy, but so far, no real signs of an uptick. So I'd say we're looking at a team who have been good for a long period of time and had a bit of a blip against a team who have been bad for a long period of time, and there's no real sign of them picking up. So that's why I'd be looking at nearly even money for a home win. Just feels like an excellent one for an Acca.
I don't know that Swindon have actually been that bad. They've certainly not been a good side this season, don't get me wrong, but they lost 4-0 at home to Walsall in their first home game. But other than that, I would actually argue that they've been at least competitive because against Chesterfield away on the opening night, who Chesterfield I think are one of the best teams in the league, they were competitive and managed to get themselves a point. They went to Crewe and definitely had the better chance in that one. And then against Notts County, they had a fair bit of the play in that game. So 3 of their 4 games, they've been pretty competitive, I would say. And then they did lose 4-0 at home to Walsall, who were top of the league. So I don't know. I'm not sure I'll be quite as confident about Barrow winning as maybe you possibly are. Because I think Swindon probably look like a bottom half side to me, but I don't think they necessarily look horrendous.
Yeah, I had this down initially, but digging into the numbers a little bit, I've written at the bottom, my bottom bullet point is could easily be a 0-0 because Barrow are the best defensive team in League Two based on the underlying data. They've only conceded once as well, but they're the 3rd worst attacking team based on expected goals. So that's just my main doubt, really. Can they create enough chances to score? And then you look at Swindon, they're the 2nd worst attacking team on underlying data and the 8th best defensive team in terms of... and when you talk about the teams they've played, Chesterfield, Notts County, Walsall, 3 of the sides that are fancied, I would say, to be top half, good attacking teams. The fact that they've limited them quite well is impressive. And now the only caveat to that is that Barrow have been very clinical with the chances. So they've generated 2.3 expected goals, but an XG on target of 4.4, which means that basically their finishing's been unbelievable. Now, whether that's going to be sustainable in the long run remains to be seen. It generally isn't. But it could be over a short period of time, which could maybe tip me over the edge to give Barrow in.
Jake, can I pitch you guys an under 2.5 goals tip? I don't know quite what the odds are going to be if someone could work that out for me, but I think I look at Jed Garner in the way... So Jed Garner is the sort of team sheet striker for Barrow, right? But he's kind of, to my eyes, he's being used as a bit of a false 9, so they kind of try and get other players in goal-scoring areas. But Swindon have got 3 centre-halves. So my thinking is you're facing 3 centre-halves and you've not really got an out-and-out striker who's going to sort of occupy them. So I would think Swindon, they're a little bit dry going forward. Barrow, you've got a false 9 operating against 3 centre-halves. I could easily see it being an under 2.5 goals if someone can give me the quotes for that.
19 to 20 for the under.
I'm just going to be steal that one and then Wrexham is probably going to be going in the Acca to win, but I'll probably steal the double chance for Shrewsbury for my own column on the website. And then just claim that it's mine rather than Gab's.
Cover all bases.
You know, we're sorted then, aren't we?
Yeah.
Sounds like we're a bit cold on Barrow for the moment.
A little bit, yeah.
Anyway, so what else?
They're a very fine margin team, aren't they? The other, I've got Chesterfield at home to Grimsby. They were really unfortunate to lose to Gillingham last time out. Unfortunate to draw with Salford before that. They created the better of the chances in both. Defensively, they've been really solid. Only Barrow have been better, according to expected goals later. And Grimsby, they beat Bradford at home last time, but away from home, they've been really poor. They've struggled to create just 0.6 XG in both, and they've conceded quite a few chances to Notts County and Fleetwood. So I think Chesterfield, as Gab said, are probably going to be one of the better teams in the league. It's a tall order to go there, and from what they've done so far on the road, suggests Grimsby might struggle.
I think Chesterfield are actually better than Gillingham, who are the league leaders, because I think at this stage of the season, what you probably want to pay more attention to is what a team can do at their absolute best. And I think you can work consistency out later in the season. But for me, Chesterfield at their best, with that front four of Dylan Markande, Armando Dobra, James Berry and Will Grigg, and they've got plenty of other options in reserve as well. I think that attacking quartet is brilliant. Ollie Banks is a bit like a League Two Scholes in midfield with his passing range. Tom Naylor at the back I really like as well. So for me, Chesterfield, I'll be happy to back them. Don't know what you think about that one, Joe.
Yeah, Chesney a bit short, do we think? That's the only thing, 4-7 generally. It's like, so it comes back to how confident are we that they're going to beat Grimsby if they're that short.
Interesting.
It would leave us really having to bulk out the rest of the Acca if we were to put this one in. I have to say, I looked at it and thought Chesterfield were far too short in the outrights because they were favourites to win the league until about 48 hours before kickoff, and then it went to MK Dons. And I do just wonder whether they are too short generally at the moment. It might level out after a few weeks.
Yeah, I think the prices on Chesterfield are drifting a little bit because of the results. I think they went off around this price, maybe a bit shorter against Swindon. And then in the last home game, I think they were about I think they were about the same price, maybe a little bit shorter again. And they've not fared as well in terms of the results as to what many would have expected. And it's just depending how you rate Grimsby. I think Grimsby are going to be.
I think Grimsby are better than last season. I think they could be a top half side, but I think their 4-1 loss at Notts County suggested that maybe they're still a little bit way off the top sides in the league. So I understand it is a bit of a call on Chesterfield, whether you think they're a bit short, but for me, I'd be happy to go with it.
Yeah. You know what? It's 2 out of 3, so I'm going to take it. And it's perfect. Thanks. If it wins, I'm happy. If it loses, I just blame you two. So
have you changed your tune on Wrexham?
Yeah.
2 out of 3 as well.
Perfect. Yeah. Do you know what? While we're at it, unfortunately, Gab, if we're taking the 2 out of 3, then Wrexham's going in as well because it saves us having to go all the way to the end and saying, where are we going to find another pick in the Acca here? So
at least you'll get an I told you
everybody
so if it lets it down.
Yeah, hassle. So we've just squeezed in 2 in one breath, and it means that the second and third selections for this week's Acca are both in. So I'll run you through all 3. So the first selection, Notts County to beat Accrington, Chesterfield to beat Grimsby is our second. And going back to the very start where we debated forever, is Wrexham to beat Shrewsbury. That brings us in at just over 3-1. Okay, so we've squeezed it in, saved a bit of time to not have the same debate again, that we are at a 3-1 threefold. And we're running out of options because, heavily reduced slate in the international break. And I'm going to put my own team. I did chat to Jake.
It wouldn't be a
this.
show with Joe on it.
I did chat to Jake about this yesterday, so I know that he was leaning in the same direction. I'll do the same. Get all my spiel out of the way first. So, essentially, Barnsley have had 2 periods of 5 minutes of madness this season. Otherwise, they'd have won all their matches. 2-0 down quickly at home to Mansfield. Then they fought back, other than the last 15 minutes where they were a bit poor. 2-0 up and cruising against Northampton. And then they had another 5 minutes where they were really poor, terrible goalkeeping error to
What
draw
about the
to
first
all.
20 minutes against Mansfield where they're absolutely outplaying each other?
Oh, God, yeah, terrible first 20 minutes.
So it's 20 minutes, not 5 minutes.
Yeah, go on. I'll give you that. And now they do appear to have turned it around. So from those 5 minutes where they conceded a goal needlessly on the counter-attack against Northampton Town and then a terrible goalkeeping error, brilliant 1-0 win against Sheffield United where they had much better defensive structure, took that same structure into a game at Crawley and won 3-0, done some good business in the window. And I don't think that you can understate, Barnsley were so bad in the final 10 to 12 games last season that I said on this podcast, saying to the guys, they're going to sack the manager and everyone's going to say it's absolutely insane. But they've gone to total pot. So to be able to turn it around as quickly as they have, to have won 2 matches, a draw and a defeat, and have a solid start, be into the third round of the Carabao Cup, not lost since the opening day of the season, that is incredibly good considering where they were for that final 10, 12 games of last season. So I'll be very, very positive for where Barnsley are going to be. Bristol Rovers, on the other hand, won both their home games, haven't scored in any of their away games, got thrashed by Stockport, goalless draw at Rotherham where they conceded 3 XG. They created only 0.8, conceded 20 shots to 5, so they just somehow scraped to a 0-0. So you can't really look at the small sample size of how they've started and think, oh, they've been brilliant. You look at the XG for Barnsley, they're in the correct place. They've got the points that they ought to have got according to the data. So that's all of my garbage.
Crawley are going to be wide open, so I think they're a very favourable opponent. You've also had arguably 2 favourable home games against Mansfield and Northampton, so it's a bit of a favourable fixture list. Granted, you won at Lincoln with a bit of a smash and grab, so I'll give you some credit for that. But I think Promise Omachere, you look at Bristol Rovers, you've got Promise Omachere, who's banging form at the moment, 2 goals at the weekend. You've got Bryant Bilongo at left wing back, looks a great signing. Clinton Mola and Taylor Moore in defence. The goalkeeper they've got is in form at the moment as well. So for me, I actually see Bristol Rovers in a similar position to Barnsley, and I wouldn't dream of backing the hosts at 4-5.
Go on, Jake.
He makes a good case, but I had it down just for the sheer fact of the Bristol Rovers away games so far, playing against teams that, like, I'm not saying Barnsley are going to be a playoff team this year, but I think they'll be there or thereabouts. And I think the same about Stockport. I think the same about Rotherham. And the fact that Bristol Rovers went there and got annihilated, really, in terms of defensively, conceding so many chances, kind of fills me with a bit of confidence around Barnsley. And then another thing, I'm going to plug his column because he's not here. Jimmy, his punt column, highlighted that Bristol Rovers are one of the worst defensive teams from set pieces in League One, and Barnsley have proven to be very strong in recent weeks and at the back end of last season as well. He's tipping Donovan Pines for the 14th week in a row to score any time. He did bag last week, and that's another potential angle and positive for me into why I back Barnsley over Bristol Rovers. Even if it is a tight game, could be decided by a set piece, which is a strength of Barnsley and a weakness of Rovers. Yeah,
Barnsley have scored a set piece goal in every game this season, other than the first game of the season. And that was a clear weakness last year. Incredibly frustrating to watch. Poor delivery, but also just seemingly having no planning. If there's one thing about Darryl Clark, you wouldn't say that he's got a definitive style of play other than being well organised, being a good motivator, and gets teams to press based on motivation and like die for the shirt type thing.
Sure.
And the fact that they've scored so many set-piece goals early in the season shows that's a clear strategy, having 2 enormous centre-backs. So, yeah, that is a great point from Jimmy. I mean, he's just sticking with the same thread for the early parts of the season, but it's paying huge dividends at the moment.
I mean, he'd written up a whole piece on why he was going to back Wiles again, and then he realised that actually the Huddersfield aren't playing this week. So shame about that 20 minutes you wasted there, Jim. But yeah, I actually don't mind this Barnsley price. I actually don't mind it at all. I think Barnsley are trending in a positive direction. I need to see a bit more from Bristol Rovers defensively away at decent teams. Like I said, we are on a small sample size. What we have seen is what we can go off. And I think that Barnsley will be able to cause them a few problems.
In case this is one you've missed, everybody, then Donovan Pines, the Barnsley centre-back, has now started 7 games for them since he started and scored 4 goals from set pieces. And he is enormous. He's 6'5", 6'6", but some of them are like banging it into the top corner, not just headers. So he's definitely someone to look at, and he's still at double-figure quotes to score in matches. So the bookies have clearly not realised that there's this goal-scoring threat. It looks like the Aidan Flint of South Yorkshire now. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on. Have you been edged slightly from an absolute no?
Well, it seems like I've got no power in this situation. You're just going to, whatever I say, you're just going to vote for, well, let's throw Wrexham in.
Don't say that. What about Chesterfield against Grimsby? I didn't agree with that one.
Okay, yeah. No,
I backed the team, didn't I?
This is it. So I with the panel of 3, so you can get a nice 2v1.
So if we don't want this, then what else?
No, I do. I want this one. My final point on Barnsley was that they weren't like, apart from the first 20 minutes, they weren't bad against Mansfield, and then they were really unfortunate against Northampton. They outcreated Northampton comfortably and were hit twice, sucker punch. So there are signs that they are hitting a very good level, and it's just a matter of time before they start producing results that match the performances. I know they've won 2 in a row, so they are getting there slowly.
I think I'm worried about Mark Roberts in defence. I think he can be a bit of a liability. I think him against someone like Promise Omachere, I think that could be a bit of a physical mismatch possibly. I think Conor Hourihan starting in midfield, which I was sort of surprised about. I think mobility there is going to be an issue, especially given how high Barnsley's wing-backs play. So I think Bristol Rovers can cause problems in transition. I've
got your answers for both of them. Mark Roberts, if he's against a mobile opponent, he didn't start the last game.
Did he not?
Put him on the bench. And
Okay.
Conor Hourihan,
Do you know what? I do prefer...
he's not started a league game yet.
Oh, is he not? I thought it was in the
No, it's maybe started 1 league game, actually.
Okay.
But, yeah, they haven't been using him in midfield for exactly the reasons that you've said. So both your points
Yeah, Gab.
are absolutely correct. I think that Roberts will start on Saturday. But they've managed to get options to not have to expose those weaknesses. Which last season they had such a limited squad, they were having to rely on players and just keep playing them when their weaknesses were being so exposed week after week.
See, if you're playing about
Finally,
three of De Gevigné, Pines and Earl, I can kind of get behind that because I actually don't mind that 3. But for me, I think Mark Roberts is going to really struggle with quick, strong attackers personally, and I think Omachere is going to do some damage if he plays.
So we're putting Barnsley in then.
He's going. Okay, so that's the
I'll have to fall on my sword.
Yeah, 4th selection for this week's Acca, despite some protestation, is Barnsley to beat Bristol Rovers in League One, which takes up for our 4-fold at just a shade under 6-1. Okay, so with 6-1 for our 4 picks so far, plenty of debate. Then we need one more, really, guys. And I'm going to float this one out. I mean, I'm worried, to be honest. Anything that I've been saying is it's not been straightforward. What have you thought of Rotherham and Charlton so far this season, Gab? I know you seemed similar to me before the season, not as hot on Rotherham as most people were.
No, it's really interesting. I had a Rotherham fan on my podcast a week or 2 ago, and it was really sort of quite a confusing conversation about Rotherham because on the one hand, there was this feeling that their XG was, you know, off the scale, highest in the EFL, and they're creating chances and they're going to pan someone one day. But there was also a feeling that the quality of chances, it was like a high volume of half chances rather than sort of clear-cut chances.
A bit of game state as well, isn't there?
Bit of game state in there possibly as well, yeah. So that's where Rotherham, I think, are a really difficult team to read. But you know what? I like Charlton, Connor Coventry in midfield. You know, it reminds me a bit of a young Michael Carrick, if you like, at the base. I like Thierry Small at left wing back. I think they've got a lot of talent in that squad and a mix of youth and experience under a fantastic manager in Nathan Jones. So for me, I would certainly be happier to go with Charlton at 11-8 than I am following the Barnsley.
Let it go.
We've stopped the Barnsley chat, all right?
Okay, yeah.
Right.
I would go with Charlton at 11-8.
Well, this is my turn to protest. I haven't protested yet. Everything Gab said about Rotherham, the data is really good, but there are some caveats to that. And it's the same with Charlton, but the opposite. Their data has been really poor. And I'm sure there might be a few caveats with that, but they've struggled to create chances on a consistent basis. They had a smash and grab win at Wigan, a last-minute winner against Leyton Orient. They sat in against Bolton and then were thumped by Reading. And through 4 games, they've been outshot 28-49. Now, that's not the sign of a good team. That's not the sign of a good team. If you're a good team, you flip those shot tallies, and that's what you would expect to see. Basically, if they continue in the same manner, they're going to drop off. They're going to stop scoring goals. They're going to take a lot of losses on the road, and that's the main reason why I want to oppose them this week. And I'm not saying I want to back Rotherham, because, again, the data has been promising, but I don't know if I can trust them just yet. But at the same time, I don't feel like I can trust Charlton at all. And I personally think 11-8 is probably a tad short as well for a team that were priced up as the second or third favourites to win the title.
I'm going to just delete all my Charlton notes now. Okay, so if not Charlton, then who?
Oh, it's got to be. We've got to take a trip to the 5th tier. We have to.
The 5th tier of the EFL, it's pretty much becoming, isn't it?
Yeah, we like dipping into it, and we need to as well when it's international break, because there, it didn't used to be the case, did it? When there was an international break, that you'd lose half or more of the League One fixtures. Never mind the Championship. So, the one that just stuck out to me was Eastleigh to win at home to Tamworth at 5-6. Now, anyone who looks at the league table probably could pick this, but if you do a little bit more digging, Eastleigh's only defeat so far came against Gateshead, who I think anyone who watched Gateshead, obviously last season they fell apart a little bit after Mike Williamson left, but the start of this season they've been really, really good. And I was speaking to LT, who did our National League preview, and he's really hot on them now. I think so they're going to be one up there in terms of the promotion. So that's their only defeat for Eastleigh. They've won 2 of the 3 at home. They beat Fylde, Solihull, and they drew with newly relegated Sutton, another team that probably are going to be in that playoff mix. And then Tamworth have had a really poor start to the season. 1-1, drawn 2, lost 3. Away from home, they got panned 7-0 last week by Barnet. I'm not saying Eastleigh at the same level as Barnet, but Eastleigh could be close to the level of York, who beat them 2-0. And then the only point they picked up away from home was against fellow promoted side Boston, who have been similar to Tamworth in terms of getting whooped every week. So I think 5-6 is a little bit big. I think Tamworth have found this jump really, really big from the 6th to the 5th tier. And I think Eastleigh are quite an accomplished National League team who seem to have sorted out the defensive issues from the back end of last year. They're not conceding as many goals. They're scoring at the same rate as well. I think they put 4 past Fylde and 2 past Solihull, or the other way around, at home. So I think Eastleigh are going to score twice here, and I just don't see Tamworth scoring twice.
I'm willing to support this because I was right on the verge of doing exactly the same as you did, Jake, and messaging Lewis Tomlinson, who writes our National League stuff. He's a big Halifax follower, really does know his National League, and in the end I had enough selections, so I thought I don't need it. You
didn't think Gab was going to come in and say
exactly, no, yeah. But this was the one that really jumped out at the National League slate, so I'd be happy to take this. So unless Gab has any reason,
you wouldn't put it past me, would you?
Gab wants to put Bristol Rovers in now.
Yeah. Absolutely, go on the gas. No, I think I'm kind of agnostic. I don't do my research on the National League, and so
that's all we need to know. Brilliant, we got it. So that is this week's Acca. So knocking Eastleigh in to beat Tamworth takes us up to 11.5 to 1. So hopefully, we get that boosted by Sky Bet, where you can get an exclusive link if you go to sportinglife.com at 12 p.m. on Friday. We might even get squeezed up to around 12 to 1. So this week's Acca is Notts County to beat Accrington, Chesterfield to beat Grimsby, Wrexham to beat Shrewsbury, Barnsley to beat Bristol Rovers, and Eastleigh to beat Tamworth at what we hope will be around 12 to 1. So those are your selections for this week's Acca. Remember, this is a podcast for 18s and over. Please gamble responsibly. And don't forget to like and follow us on social media. It's at Sporting Life FC. It's this week's Acca on YouTube as well. Please hit that subscribe button and do the same wherever you get your podcasts. Likes and comments as well. We need those. Great for us on the algorithm on YouTube, on all the podcast channels as well. I'm just doing all this so I don't get told off by our social media man, George. So please do come back next week. We'll have a much fuller slate to look at, but hopefully we'll be having back-to-back winners after last week's 12-1. Thanks for listening. See you again next week.